Art can mean different things to different people. For me, it's all about the joy of creating. So if you draw, paint, write, dance, sing, craft, play air guitar, or even sculpt using nothing but mashed potatoes, consider yourself an artist and join the conversation. For the next half hour, meet the artist, learn about their inspiration, and enjoy the beauty of creativity. Welcome to Art Talk with John Cole Artist. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Art Talk with me, John Cole Artist. Tonight, I have the true pleasure to talk with Blair Shiver. She's a really good friend of mine. I met her, about a year and a half ago online, and then we met in person last year. And one of the things I find fascinating about Blair is her love of food. But before I introduce her completely, as always, I have my REM pod because one of these days, my friends, we'll have a ghost come through. And Blair, maybe it will be you that brings them here. So how are you tonight?
I'm amazing, John. How are you? I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here on your podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome. I saw you speak last year at Behind the Power, and you have such a strong, clear voice. Not only in the presentation that you made last year, but also it comes through in the passion with what you do. I mean, I follow your business on Facebook, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well. And I've also seen some of your live videos that you do. I don't think you're doing them as much as you were, but you really should, because you have a voice, the face, the knowledge, the intelligence to do this. So this is going to be a great talk tonight.
You're very kind, and you're correct. I have not been doing as many live videos in the store because I have been working a lot in my business, which they say as an entrepreneur is not so good, but you know, that's the realities of business ownership, right? Sometimes you have to work in the business, sometimes you're working on the business, and it's about striking that balance.
Christine says, hello, John and Blair. Kisses and hugs.
Hi, Christine. How are you? I'm so excited that you're here to support us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she's showing up as me, and that's okay. There can be two of me, why not? So I think one of the questions that the folks that are watching live tonight or watch the replay is, what exactly is the art of food, number one? And then number two, what does that have to do with artwork in general? Well, let me answer the first half of that. And the first half is that everything is art. Everything requires some flavor of artistic talent, right? Whether or not it's painting a picture, building a skyscraper, or making tonight's dinner. Would you agree or disagree with that, Blair?
I would strongly agree with that, John, and I'll explain why I strongly agree with that.
Why? Thank you.
You'll notice the apron that I'm wearing here says Boss 2. My husband and I co-own a health food store in the Florida Keys. It's a natural market and organic cafe. After watching my own mother and stepfather operate a real estate business for many years, I swore that I would never own a business with my partner, because not only is business ownership in and of itself very challenging, doing it with your spouse really blurs the boundaries of relationship, work, raising a family, all the things.
Right.
So this ironically was a gift for my mother-in-law. When we had our now 6-year-old daughter, originally, we jokingly called her the tiny boss. So my mother-in-law gave me an apron. My husband says, hi, Donna, so great to see you. My husband says, boss. I'm Boss 2. And my daughter, Amelia, for whom our store in Marathon, Florida is named Amelia's Food for Thought, is Tiny Boss. So, yeah. Food, I do really feel strongly that food is art. And I mentioned that whole backstory about why I feel that food is art and how we came to know each other today, or why I'm here today is because prior to owning a business together and prior to being married and prior to having a child, my husband and I met working in a restaurant. And we really connected over a love of food. And you know, as I'm growing in my marriage and as an adult, which is overrated, by the way, I am understanding that my partner's expression of love may be different than what my expectation of it should be.
Right,
A very
right.
wise person in my past told me, don't shit all over yourself.
Yeah.
So Michael and I really enjoyed cooking together prior to all of life, which has been a beautiful blessing. But it is an expression of love. It can also be an expression of self-love. And as part of the cafe and market ownership, I also do some health coaching. And I was really intrigued to come here and join your podcast today, because when we met in previous interactions, you were always so intrigued by my cooking. I'm like, it's really very utilitarian. I just have to get dinner on the table for my family tonight. And I found that so many people are intimidated by cooking.
Yeah.
And I think that, as we've discussed previously, people can be very intimidated about art too. It's a fear that we have to overcome. Like, oh, I don't like cooking because I don't know how. Well, I don't like painting because I don't know how. And I had just as an aside really quick, I had a customer in the store last week who was on vacation with her adult daughter. She was a very anxious person. And we have people coming in all the time looking for, I need something for anxiety. And I'm not a pharmacy and I'm not a physician.
Right.
But there are lots of great natural supplements that can help with anxiety management. After we just, because very much like we hope that our physicians do, I wanted to ask questions to get to know more about what was her line of work, what was her stress level, what challenges was she facing in her life. I said, is there a time that you feel peaceful? Mm-hmm. And she said, when I'm working with clay.
Okay.
So, you and I have worked together to be aware of our feelings and recognize when we're when we're having experiences and having feelings that we want more of, right?
Right.
So I enjoy cooking. I'm not, making sugar swirls and 9-layer cakes. A baker, I am not. You can tell by my refrigerator, my life is quite busy and somewhat chaotic. But I do feel that food is a great expression of love, not only for our family members, but for ourselves. And so many of us have gotten away from cooking food because we feel like we don't have enough time. We don't know how. We don't have recipes. We don't have a meal plan. All the things we don't have.
Right.
Well, I'm going to share with you today that I'm making dinner tonight from leftovers for my family. And I think it's going to be pretty. And we're going to do it in less than the time that we have for this podcast.
Okay. Well, you know what? It already sounds great. So even if we go a little later, that's okay, because I would be dying to see the final product, especially out of leftovers. I think the leftovers.
I'm not building this up too much.
No, leftovers I pull out of the refrigerator are normally in some kind of glass bowl, and then I just throw it in the convection oven and I'm done. You know what I mean? You said some really interesting things there. Food is an art. And one of the things we do with food, I think, first is we look at it, right? And the more pretty, more attractive that dish is that you're making, the more you're liable to enjoy it.
The first thing that when we're served food in a restaurant, for instance, that we didn't prepare,
right?
The first thing we do about our food.
What is the first thing we do about our food?
When someone serves us a plate, what's the first thing we do?
Well, I always look at it first to make sure it's what I ordered, number one. I mean, for me, that is the first thing I do. I mean, if it's something that isn't appealing to me, I'll be less likely to accept it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that it's visually appealing for you right now. So you can't see because, again, as we discussed, I don't have a studio kitchen. What I'm doing right now is I'm chopping up some cucumbers. I like to, there we go. I like to peel my cucumbers just down 3 sides. The skin does still have some health benefit. For some people, it's texturally not appealing, but I like, because it makes it pretty, to peel my cucumber down 3 sides. It gives you color variation. My kid likes it that way. My mom's always done it. I just enjoy doing it. So I've peeled a cucumber down 3 sides, and I'm just going to thinly slice it.
Now you enjoy cooking, and you said that you and your husband enjoy that type of thing, or that you used to do that a lot together. Do you still do that periodically?
not as often as I might like.
Sure.
As with business ownership and raising a family, tonight we had this podcast at 5.
Mm-hmm.
She had dance at 5:30. Don't think that she's not eating leftovers that I purchased from a friend's restaurant to feed my staff today. We do enjoy, and I think that there's again, for me, even with the short time, it's something that I can do for my husband when he gets home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I can do for myself instead of saying, "Ugh, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten anything this afternoon. I don't feel like cooking. What? I'm just going to go grab a can of soup."
Right.
That's not visually appealing, is it? And then you eat your food with this kind of like, nah, it's all right. And then that carries over to bedtime or your evening routine. I'll find something on television. Or I don't know about what your evening routine looks like, but ours can be kind of challenging sometimes. So I think that for me, preparing food with my hands, even if it's something like leftover chicken gyros,
Mm-hmm.
keeps me present. And it also, fresh cucumbers, they're good. Fresh cucumbers in a tzatziki.
That stuff is very tasty. Very tasty.
Phenomenal as a condiment or a dip.
Mm-hmm.
So come home, you're hungry, you haven't eaten anything all day, cut up some cucumbers, eat something yummy while you're preparing your meal for your family.
Right. Now, one of the things that we talked a couple days ago, just to get our ducks in a row, right? One of the things I mentioned to you was my dislike for fresh green beans, right? And it's not that I don't like green beans, but my preference is the canned version. Okay. I taste wise, I think it's because it's something I was used to eating as a child. We had a lot of canned goods. We weren't a very rich family. So fresh vegetables wasn't something that normally appeared on our dinner table. So I understand where that comes from. What would somebody like me do about that if we think, or if we know, because I think it's pretty true that fresh vegetables are definitely more nutritious than canned foods, right? Processed food, same thing. And I know that if we just don't like something, are there alternatives for that? Or is it what do you
ask you a
think?
question. What fresh vegetables do you like, John? And just quickly, so everybody knows what I'm doing here, I'm again chopping up tomatoes. I have Roma tomatoes. This dinner is going to be from 1 cucumber, 2 Roma tomatoes, chicken thighs, which are very affordable, and then I have some condiment options. But I hear what you're saying about the affordability and the price of food these days. So to answer your question, John, you don't like fresh green beans. What fresh vegetables do you like?
Well, what you're slicing up right now, I don't mind salad ingredients, because with salad ingredients, even if I don't like lettuce, that lettuce is not high on my list either, right? But at least I can put dressing on there and kind of change that flavor profile.
Right. And
right.
who says when the teacher's asking the kids in school, what's your favorite food? What kid says lettuce? Nobody says lettuce. So much like, I know that you create in many different mediums, but I'm going to reference a model that you just built. There are many different components to that. So, you may not like green beans by themselves, but what I can do with some tomatoes and cucumbers for me, like what fresh vegetables do you like? Just answer the question. Don't qualify it. Just answer. What fresh vegetables do you like?
All right. I like cucumbers. I like tomatoes. I like, what other fresh vegetables are there?
So many.
Vegetables. I like raw carrots. I dislike cooked carrots. Cooked carrots are, whoever decided to throw a carrot on a fire and cook that, I don't know, there's something wrong with them.
My 6-year-old would agree with you. It's interesting. She told me one time that she didn't like squishy carrots.
Yeah.
And the first thought that I had was, are they feeding you or like rotten carrots at daycare? But what she meant was she didn't like cooked carrots. She
Right.
loves raw carrots.
Yeah.
So figure out what you do like, and then figure what you can build around that. So just take, for instance, basic pantry staples: cucumber, tomato. Have you got some feta in the fridge? You've got a quick salad. You want to bake? Do you have quinoa? You know, the thing with, I don't know if I have any in here, but the thing with all of the grains these days, like brown rice and quinoa, they have so many of the pouches or like microwave packs that you can make that a lot more quickly. If you have a rice cooker, quinoa is very easy to cook very quickly. But so you take your basic tomato and cucumber, you chop them up. Where's my camera? I'm terrible with this. There we go. You throw in some quinoa, some feta, maybe a little bit of olive oil and balsamic. You've got a nice cold summer salad.
Yeah.
Cucumbers and onions. That same vinegar that you might use in, you know, a dressing that you might make for yourself. Cucumber, onion, red onion, cucumber, onion, vinegar, and sugar. You've got another cold salad in the summertime that doesn't require you to turn on the stove. And I say, you know, things about the heat because I'm in the Keys. John's in New Hampshire, Massachusetts. So,
Yep.
And it's interesting when you're speaking to different people in different geographies thinking about food. You know, that, you know, I said New Hampshire. I used to work with a woman in New Hampshire, and she was always like, oh, in the Keys, you make such creative things. Well, my doula, when I had my daughter, was from Brazil. And I met her Brazilian grandmother. And I grew up in the South making collard greens. Now, in the South, making collard greens, you boil them, you boil the crap out of them with a ham hock. I had no idea what a beautiful opportunity it is to scare your collard greens with a little bit of butter.
Okay.
Chop them. Would you know what I mean when I say chiffonade, or like finely in thin ribbons?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've watched the Food Network many
Chop
times.
your greens into thin ribbons because, again, part of the reason why I'm chopping my vegetables this way. Have you ever had a good chopped salad in New York, like where you go into a restaurant or into like a quick serve bar and there's a salad bar and you pick what you want and they put it into a big bowl and then they chop it and it's like the best thing you've ever had?
Yeah, I think
it's so easy to eat.
Right.
Now you don't have to sit there and cut it. I'm all for sitting and enjoying your food, being present with what we eat. That's another form of nourishment and self-love. But chopping your vegetables into attractive and easily edible portions or bites is also very important when you're creating your food, in my opinion.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying. And what's interesting as you're talking is you really are describing food as an art. And I really appreciate that because it just supports what I was saying earlier about that. I think what you're saying also is rather inspirational because I think you're kind of breaking down some of those common thoughts I think people have about how complex food preparation can be, or how time consuming it can be, or how, you know, how much of a challenge it can be for you. And the way you're describing it, to me, it does sound very, very, I'm not going to say easy because there's still effort. It goes with anything, right? Whether or not you're painting, you're sculpting, you're doing whatever. There's always going to be some effort involved. Matter of fact, if you wanted to run a McDonald's right now, Blair, it's going to take some effort. You still got to go out, get in your car, drive all the way down there, order it, wait 45 minutes because McDonald's isn't fast anymore. Get your food, bring it all the way home.
Cheap either.
Oh, right.
I have to say, being in the health food business, I've, you know, my husband and I own a vegan and vegetarian cafe. We are not vegan and vegetarian. I worked when we first purchased our business to overcome a lot of obstacles around what other people thought about the food that we were preparing. So the shift for me was very important to understand that it's not about exclusivity, but it's about health. Right. And it was very interesting that we purchased our business at the end of 2017, and we moved from 2017, a Cat 5 Hurricane Irma hit the Florida Keys.
Yep.
And we moved from hurricane recovery right into a global pandemic. So it's been a very interesting time of growth as business owners and also for our own personal development. But yes, it does not, if people think, I want to eat healthy. Okay, well, part of what I do as a health coach is say, well, why do you want to eat healthy?
Mm-hmm.
Some people may want to lose weight, which is a beautiful benefit of eating healthy. But some people may want to change their diet. If you go to the doctor and your A1C comes back high or your red blood count is low,
Mm-hmm.
your doctor is going to tell you how you can supplement
Right.
to work to correct those problems. But at the end of the day, John, it comes back to diet. So I had 2 customers today. Diet being what we eat.
Right.
Another thing is diet is not, we have been conditioned to think about diet as deprivation.
Yes.
I think changing the word diet to wellness,
Mm-hmm.
because we look at it holistically. I was a late adopter, cutting the cable cord, but my life changed drastically, as did my marriage, when it came to a shouting match. We're like, why are we paying so much money?
I know.
What we consume. Yeah. So this is a budgetary conversation, right? We're talking about the cost of food. What we consume, when we're aware about what we consume, not only what we put in our mouth, what we watch, what we listen to, what we read, who we speak to and interact with.
Right.
That's part of our wellness. And I had a customer come in today. Her husband, got her husband on the phone. The doctor said his red blood cell count came back low. So we had a list of supplements. And I'm like, his wife's talking for him. I said, how many times a day do you eat? Well, he doesn't eat breakfast and lunch. He only eats dinner. And what line of work is he in? Construction. Oh, he's working a very physical job and eats 1 meal a day. So for those who don't know, I live in South Florida, south of Miami. We're halfway between Miami and Key West. So I use the analogy often. If you wanted to get in your car and drive, say, how far are you out of Boston, John?
About 40 minutes. So
Okay.
about 40 miles.
So you would not get in your car and try to drive you and your lovely wife to a lunch in Boston on a quarter of a tank of gas.
No.
You would. You could, but it would be a risk, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So
yes.
It's the same thing. We don't look at our bodies as machines, but we put these absolutely unrealistic expectations on them that they're going to run all day at full capacity, just like they did when we were 20 years old. Seriously? It's not going to happen.
I know
your body's going to, your things are going to hurt. You're going to be hungry. Then you're going to be cranky. Then you're going to get in an argument with your coworker. And nobody knows what that's like. Listen, look up hangry, and I'm like the poster child for hangry. I get it. Do you know why I get it exponentially even more now? Because I made a little person who's just like me. And as soon as she starts getting hangry, I'm like, here, you need to eat. Here,
eat these, please.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Now you would, the point about the expense, I think, is worth commenting about really quick, because I know with traditional art form, you want to talk about your food real quick? It looks like chicken.
I'm gonna let you ask your question, because I have a good answer for it, I hope.
Okay, yeah. If you're doing traditional art, let's say a painting or something like that, and you walk into Michael's or Hobby Lobby or wherever you go to get your art supplies, you really kind of have a choice there. I can buy the generic brand for $1.99 for a tube of paint, or I can spend $10.99 and get something that others think are better. But really what's funny about that is for your normal paintings, if it's not something that's going to hang in a gallery or something like that, the cheaper paint is really just as good. There might be some variations there, and I think the purist artist might say, well, there's a big difference. But for the normal person looking at your final product, nobody's going to know the difference. So that begs the question when we talk about food specifically. I walk into my local Safeway, or what do you guys got down there?
Publix and Dixie.
There you go. You walk into Publix or something like that, and then you have this choice. You've got cucumbers at what, 69 cents? I don't know, whatever cucumbers cost. My wife does the shopping over here. And then you have the organic, which is oftentimes 4 or 5 times higher. So the question then becomes, which really is the better option? And is there a better option there?
I think that's a great question, John, and one that I'm also very passionate about. So, hey, Lucinda, so great to see you. Thanks for being here. I actually have not created a post about this, but I was shopping in Winn-Dixie a couple weeks ago. And anecdotally, our family acquired 3 pet turtles that we brought home from Georgia. So suddenly I'm a turtle parent also.
Sweet.
The point being, I happen to own a store where I brought home some organic mixed greens because I am able to buy them in bulk. But if I were, take for instance, this instance when I was shopping in Winn-Dixie, and there's beautiful red leaf lettuce, loose, looks gorgeous. There's also, and this is a fault of the food industry, I won't go into that too much, but there's organic romaine hearts that, yes, is probably almost double the price. Mm-hmm. For me, it's important to eat organic, but just like John, if you were creating a birthday card, or what would you create for your niece? If you were creating a birthday card for your niece, or a commissioned interior wall of someone's home,
right? Completely
different budgets and completely different needs. For me, I made the decision in that moment about that lettuce that, I'm going to share this with the turtles. They like to hide underneath it. But I, in that moment, had much rather purchase conventional red leaf lettuce, because red leaf lettuce is better than something pre-packed full of sodium from the middle aisles of the market.
Right.
It's also more affordable than the organic lettuce that is less actual product and wrapped in plastic. That's a big beef for me currently about produce specifically, but about the food industry in general, and big bulk markets like that. So where you can, I happened along one of those same days, went to a local farmer's market, because I could go into a farmer's market where I know the produce had been probably grown at least in my state. Mm-hmm. And there was variety there that I wouldn't see in the big box store. No problem purchasing conventional produce. I'm not going to drive myself crazy having anxiety over whether or not it was sprayed with pesticides. Is feeding my family fresh produce a better option than McDonald's? Yes. Is organic preferable? Yes. But if it's wrapped in plastic and put in a styrofoam tray, mm-hmm. then my impact on the environment is something to consider also. So I don't know if that's a straight answer to your question, but really quickly, while we're on the subject, these are grilled marinated chicken thighs. Chicken thighs are often cheaper than chicken breasts. You can get a lot of them. And the marinade that we did for this chicken is an easy family recipe from my mother-in-law's father. Lemons, red onion, parsley, garlic, and olive oil. All basic items that you can put chicken thighs in, mm-hmm. marinate several of them, and turn it into multiple different meals over the course of the week. So not only can you spend time with your family on a Sunday grilling some chicken, but if you do a little bit more than what that one meal requires, you can prepare a protein for another meal on a busy weeknight.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because now I am hungry, and I had a feeling this was going to happen, by the way. Yeah.
We'll see if we can work out some, I'll at least show you what the final product is going to look like. So right now, really quickly, John, you see these chicken thighs. Again, they smell so good, and I could eat this leftover chicken cold, which is an option if you're busy working from home.
Right.
You can easily throw it in some lettuce, chop up some veggies, throw it in a bowl of leftover grains. I'm just going to put it in a pita with some lettuce and veggies and tzatziki tonight and have a yummy dinner.
Yes, that sounds really good. So, as you're finishing up that and preparing your meal, I noticed that we're at the 30-minute mark, which once again, these conversations go really, really fast. I mean,
They do. They do.
yeah, and I think tonight you really inspired me, although I think my wife is still watching, to maybe try something. I think I think it's just like everything else, right? I think that the more you do something, the better you get at it. And the more you do something, you do tend to enjoy it more because now you're more comfortable with it. I was never comfortable with preparing food. Even when I was single during my my single periods in my life, I tended to not cook for myself, because I never really had an interest because nobody ever cooked with me, right? I was never taught how to cook. I didn't have parents that cooked all the time, right? My mother, I think, actually not primarily, she was the one that did all the cooking. But I never really showed an interest in it, only because I was typically out playing with my friends and doing things like that.
Well, as what, little boys should be doing, right? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with a little boy wanting to be in the kitchen, but understanding that was mom's role. That was the purpose she served. And let me tell you, in COVID, staying home and cooking 3 meals for your day, holy smokes, that's a full-time job, because as soon as you finish, you got to do the dishes. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but I think instead of focusing on what we don't like, which is what we have a tendency as humans to do, focus on what you do like and figure out how you can create multiple different things with that, because I hear that with clients a lot as well. Oh, I wound up eating the same thing. Do you know how much different produce is out there and how easy the food industry has made it to put together? One of my favorite shows, you mentioned the Cooking Network, was semi-homemade. What can you prepare? What can you take some time chopping? I mean, give me the tzatziki and I could just eat this, but incorporate, either pita or these. These are really great, by the way. They're like nice little,
You make a wrap out of it, yeah.
Am I going to make pita myself? Heck no. I said I'm not a baker. But figure out what you do like and how you can diversify and explore a little bit with that. If somebody didn't like to make clay, like sculpt, we wouldn't send them to hop on a potter's wheel. But figure out what you do like.
Right. Well, thank you, Blair, for spending the last half hour with me. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. So hopefully sometime soon you'll come back on and we can talk more about it, because I think talking about food, talking about art, those are two subjects that everybody sees every day, they experience every day, whether or not it's a billboard, whether or not it's something on television, or whether or not it's something in the kitchen. So it's all relatable. It all goes together, and it's all what makes what we do so fun.
Thanks so much for having me, John. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to the next time.
All right. I put your website up there. So folks, if you're interested in checking out her business down in Marathon, it's Food for Thought FL for Florida Keys.com. Blair, it's been a pleasure. I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, John.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you so very much for joining me on the Art Talk podcast, where it's my goal to bring artists together to talk about their craft. If you'd like to join me for a conversation, please reach out via email at johncoleartist@gmail.com or by visiting my website at johnrobertcole.com. So until next time, keep crafting, painting, and inspiring others with your creativity. You make more of an impact than you know. See ya.